the punishing virus, a destructive force of unnatural origin that can wreak havoc to devastating proportions. From destroying, corroding, and corrupting machinery of all manners, rendering the mind and flesh useless upon contact if exposed for far too long. The Ascension Network, a primary component of the punishing virus, where those who want to find the strength to save themselves can go, where those who seek salvation in fear of losing themselves can go, where those who seek the power to keep pushing on, motivated to defeat themselves daily, can go. The Ascendants, mass murdering, evil puppets of the punishing virus who want nothing more than to see humanity fall permanently. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? No, certainly not. It's far more than that, isn't it? Right. The perfect combination of man, construct, and virus to create one super species, the new evolution of humanity. The mission. That is the mission. To survive all of this, no. To thrive in all of this. But even then, even that isn't the true mission for 3 specific ascendants, is it? The desire to survive, to prove oneself. The need to protect oneself, to finally feel safe after all this time. The longing to never feel weakness again. To always be strong enough to protect. Certainly, these can't possibly sound like these descriptions apply to the Ascendants, could they? Ascendants are cold-blooded killers who can turn on humans or even one another on a dime, aren't they? Not the 3 young women this video is going to be about. No, far from it. Luna, the de facto leader of the band of punishing misfits. Lamia, the genuine genius, the supporter, a scout, a little sister of sorts. Alpha, the enforcer, the protector, the offensive mark. These 3's relationship is important to understanding the path they all took, which caused them to become a mainline trio for themselves. This video will dive into each of these ladies' desires, motivations, and reasons for going forward and developing into what we see today. The story of punishing Grey Raven starts off relatively slow, with the beginning not touching too much on the 3, aside from your mysterious encounter with a familiar shadow of Lucia's self, who was simply referred to as A. However, through discovery of hidden stories, side stories, events, and character backgrounds, we can confidently break down and piece together Luna, Lamia, and Alpha. And of course, you obviously know who we must start with. And please, bear with me everyone. This video is going to be a long one. And as a disclaimer, I have not read every single line of dialogue in the story. I have not sat down and bore witness to every single cutscene. Please, bear in mind, this is just simply my opinion solely formed off of memory and what I have seen. Luna. Imagine it. Your life completely and utterly peaceful. Your sister, a girl who, for some reason, may not look similar to you, yet you feel deep down that bond and connection of family. Games, stories, good food, and a welcoming home. What more could you ask for? That sister of yours, your protector. No matter what ends up happening, you know that nothing bad could ever happen to you when you're with her. Until it does. Your entire life plunged into chaos. The world that once made so much sense unraveled before you. The faces you grew to love soon turns to distant memories in your still such short life you have lived. Forgive me for letting you down. is all you could think to yourself, when at every turn in this new and altered world, that sister is still protecting you. No matter how hard you try, you will always be protected. That was little Luna's world, little Luna's life. Luna and Lucia were far too sweet to be placed in such a horrendous situation, to be thrown to the world in such unceremonious fashion. Orphaned, surviving with other children now in a church surrounded by adults who couldn't care less about whether the sisters had food in their belly or they slept with an empty stomach. The other kids nowhere near the emotional intelligence Luna and Lucia are at. Just like before, when it was only the two of them, in their small home, with their small family. It was only them. Even now, in this gigantic church, surrounded by people, they are alone. Just like before, it was only the two of them. Time passed as their days of traversing together in the dangers of the outside, Lucia scavenging for food and toys for Luna to keep her little sister fed and entertained. Their paths were about to diverge in such a devastating and horrific way, it would send the two spiraling down into what seemed like, no, into what clearly was madness. A Babylonian order. These children have potential. With details that we all know how it goes, children were chosen, taken, and attempted to be transformed. You can save this world, they would say. We have hit a breakthrough, they would say. This is your chance to be powerful enough to fight back and protect the ones you love, they would say. And that caught Luna's interest. To be a construct, to become an all-powerful protector, to defeat those scary monsters on the outside, this was Luna's opportunity to break free from her weakness and be able to protect the sister she had loved so much, Lucia. To finally be able to give her a break, to finally be able to show her that she is worth something, and damn it, she is willing to accept this all despite the fate that would befall her. Lucia and Luna were both roped into this horrendous situation. However, while one would be successful through the surgery, Lucia would be told the other was not. Luna had not made it. Luna lost her life. This destroyed Lucia, and it marked the beginning of her rebirth through the ashes wrought from the destruction of the devastating news. But this simply was not the case. Discarded, abandoned, tossed away with the rest of the trash. Oh yes, Luna did indeed survive. She survived well. But now she has to deal with more than just her thoughts of confusion, dealing with the understanding of the situation, dealing with the fact she has been in more pain than she's ever been before. Not used to her new constructual body. Not used to the fact that the punishing virus has taken hold of her in this garbage heap. Or perhaps, no, she took hold of it. A loop of animosity, confusion, rage, sadness, regret, denial, all a deep depression filled with such oppressing pain. This was not what she wanted. Luna did not want to go through so much pain. She would have to catch herself from calling out for help from her protector, the one she swore she would be able to protect this time around. The one she swore she would protect this time around. What eventually had been a pain-filled mindset had all eventually filtered out, a filtering to bring forth a new construct, a filtering to clear the doubt of abandonment she almost felt towards her sister, her protector. A filtering. But what of the other? What of the protector? The knight to this poor princess who was fallen victim to corruption and hatred? Well, she went on to do what any good knight would do. She went on to serve a kingdom and slay all of its enemies no matter what. And that's what she did. She served so very faithfully until the kingdom disserviced her so very tragically. Her own construct partners, her own commandant, through corruption and greed, the knight was nearly slain by those she trusted more than anything. The corruption that ran through this group, the tragic betrayals that took place within Babylonia, is perhaps a video for another time. For now, we look into her struggles this time around. Alpha. Running out of energy, running out of strength, running out of places to go, running out of time. The pod she was in that staved the infection was no longer a viable option. Lucia could feel herself being broken down from the inside and out, corruption ravaging her body and mind. Fighting off the corrupt she could, she continued to be pursued by more. Pursued by corrupted who are far more than just the average fodder, attempting to rip her to shreds. Ones who ascended above and beyond what the viral intensity has done to them. Her black hair slowly turning white until no trace of the original shade remained. Vision failing, voice modulator no longer functioning in the way that it should, Lucia knew that it would only be a matter of time until those ascendants, that girl who calls herself Luna, would no longer be so passive in their pursuit of her. It was at this point Lucia, after so much time, wouldn't be running away from the corrupted, or even running away from the ascendants because of her fear of them. Even as she was resisting, yet dying to the corruption, she showed no fear when it came to combating Roland, or anyone who stood in her way of trying to make sense of everything, to make sense of it all. She was running from the truth. Several of them. Running from the truth that Babylonia, the humans she trusted so much, would turn on her. Running from the truth that no matter where she went, there would be no safe haven any longer. Running from the truth that the girl who claimed to lead these people, who she was trained to understand as her enemies, was her sister. Eventually, after so very long, the running ceased. It had to cease. What more could she have done? The only thing she could do on this rain-filled day was accept the reality of the situation. To accept that all of her answers, her safety, lied with her sister. A sister she thought she lost forever. A sister she wanted to protect. A sister she wasn't even fully sure was the real her. Regardless, it was familiar. The knight took up an oath again. An oath she made when she was a little girl. She was going to stay by Luna and still protect her. Even if they are both twisted, almost unrecognizable now, in this twisted and unrecognizable world. She was going to stay at her side, continue to gain more power, to never go through this situation of weakness again, so that she may be able to continue what she had always wanted to do in this vile, corrupted, dilapidated world. To protect her sister, to slay the monsters for her, to be alongside Luna. Now, not everyone can have such a wonderful background that Luna and Alpha started off with as little girls. Not everyone can simply have the will to overcome such suffering on their own. Unfortunately, the next person in question knows the opposite of the life explained before all too well. And why not go ahead and describe the other end of the coin? The same life, though opposite experiences lived. Lamia. Her mother dying during her birth in order to make sure she successfully passed on the life she carried all those months. Born in a lab, deep underwater, no cozy home, no loving siblings, no truly functioning body or emotions, Lamia had been surrounded by people whose hearts had been just as cold and unmoving as the steel walls that surrounded them. Atlantis. You would expect this place to be a dream, though it was only a solitary nightmare. A streamline of research and data and isolation. As Lamia grew, the poor girl only knew a select few things. None of the scientists that worked in the laboratory known as Atlantis knew the first thing about properly raising and emotionally connecting with a child that must be raised. They did not have to. The only people that mattered on Atlantis had been people who could be useful, and Lamia, as far as usefulness, did not meet any criteria for being considered even half of a person. Her legs did not work proper, her mind not molded to be as sharp as those around her, her uselessness reflected in the small bits of food she would receive from her one meal a day she would be able to partake in. She was seen as nothing by most, an inconvenience even, though acknowledged by some. There had been at the very least, two that would be decent to her. At least to Atlantean standards. The doctors who were present at her birth and her mother's death. By no means were these scientists bad or evil, just emotionally stunted from being away from society for so very long, only running on logic and reason. Eventually, as time went by, and as Lamia became ever so slightly older, still just a small child, she learned new things. She read about the grass that existed outside of Atlantis, the land that had trees and wonderful blue skies. She wanted, at the very least, experience the world. That was little Lamia's wish. Her attachment to this place, however, was all she knew. At any given moment as well, when she would bring up such an idea, seen as most certainly frivolous, it would be shot down by any and all who would hear of it. It disheartened her, though it did not fully discourage her. More time passed. The people of Atlantis had been dying. They were starving, yet they still continued to ration the food to those who were deemed truly useful, and allowing the others to die. The research could not be stopped. A decision was made. It would appear Lamia was told she would die. A poor, small young flame being snuffed out far too soon. She did not want this. She didn't. She couldn't allow herself to die. She didn't want to die. And when asked why she didn't want to die, when asked what was it about life that she wanted to hang on to so dearly, she didn't have an answer. She could only respond with her tears and would be ignored until she would calm down. Afterwards, the doctor who spoke to her so much more fondly than anyone else suggested that she become useful. Her worthless body could be used for something far more productive, far more lucrative for her very existence itself, for life itself outside of Atlantis. And without too long of thinking through the conjecture, she accepted. She did not understand it at the time, but this was the doctor's way of giving her an out. A mission to the outside world, a way to save Lamia from Atlantis. She picked up on so many things, a smart, scared, shy, and determined girl who was ready to spread her fins and swim as far away as she could. When the time came, she did. Her meeting with the other ascendants after her infection was soon. Returning to the place of her birth also proved to be a challenge, and the challenge did not come from Vera defeating a simple, scared girl that was Lamia. No, the challenge was realizing the people she believed were so emotionless, so uncaring. They gave her this mission to save her from the death that was hanging over Atlantis. Now, I'm sure it's quite clear for a lot of you probably that the connections for each of these three stories are very, very obvious. Very straightforward in a lot of cases. There are other things that I did want to touch on in terms of emphasizing how all of these backgrounds do reflect certain ideas and certain opinions and ways that I view the relationship between the three ascendants that we're speaking about. And obviously, it's not going to be a sort of, how can I say, super deep epiphany that I would be reaching or anything of the sort. What I'm trying to show is the bond that they have is very real, and the bond that they share stems from the things that they experience. And for the conclusion of all of this, I wanted to show that the things that are between them, that are said, that are done, the way that they view each other, how they probably truly feel about each other, depending on what it is that they went through on their background, is actually, well, contingent on their background. Now that we have covered the three of these ascendants' livelihoods, now that we have covered their motivations, their ambitions, their pain, we can then talk about how their connections reflects their past and why their actions shows that the bond between these three could potentially be seen as unbreakable. A desire for independence, a longing for the past, motivation for power, an apprehensive view on the future, a dependency on others, the tiresome feeling of unease in the present. These three statements, I believe, reflect Luna, Alpha, and Lamia quite perfectly. Allow me to explain. Upon their first meeting, we can see these various things show through their interactions with one another. Luna, in the beginning of her abandonment, still held on to the idea of wanting to no longer be a burden to her sister. Even through thoughts of betrayal she could have stemmed from Lucia at the time, she still felt compelled to push through those thoughts and watch over Lucia for all of the time that she worked for Babylonia. Luna couldn't possibly go out of her way and interject herself into Lucia's life again. After all, Luna was strong now, and she had become so strong that she could work through the pain she felt when it came to missing her sister. Luna was a big girl now, a strong one, stronger than most. At the time of her viral intensity exposure, possibly the strongest of them all. But this still didn't allow her to go out of her way to see her sister. But of course, at first chance that she got, she chose to jump at the opportunity to come to her sister's rescue after experiencing her betrayal from Babylonia. Luna, if she had saw any other way at the time, would have taken any path to be with her sister again. This is something that I wholeheartedly believe. This time, she would be able to save her. This time, Luna could save Lucia. Luna could guide Lucia. Luna could protect Lucia. Luna's intensive desire for independence is perfectly displayed on how the people around her are dependent on her pinnacle, independent power amongst the agents of the Ascension Network during the time the Ascension Order was kind of still together, you could say. Luna took this opportunity to use her own pain and experiences to assist in opening Lucia's eyes to the fact that she was abandoned and discarded just like Luna had been by humanity itself. As for Lucia, who abandoned her name and took on the alias of Alpha, she refused to ever experience such weakness again. Shades of Virgil. The same weakness that she had gone through to cause such pain. More power is what she needed if she intended to survive. Now, whether this motivation is contributed by the fact Luna came to her rescue when she must protect her instead, or if her rage of being betrayed fueled such desires, or if the reunion in itself made her realize she must take up the armor of a knight once more, who could say? I personally believe that it is all of these reasons, as some of these points had even been explained within the story. Alpha experienced a moment in which motivated her to acquire more power for what she believed was a bleak and uncertain future. Luna, along with herself, realized they must eventually traverse. For Lamia, you would think her dependence upon Luna and Alpha amongst others wouldn't be present, as in her early life she was surrounded by nothing but independence and emotional vacancy, though a lifestyle like this can also take the opposite effect on a person. Lamia, upon corruption, sought desperately to not die, to not become a mindless, bestial machine, as she has seen many turn into so many times before. She relied on the Ascendants' guidance and sought a way to get out of an otherwise impossible situation, though being understandably cautious. Now, this reason doesn't show her dependence in itself, however, what does is her attachment to Luna and Alpha upon their meetings. The desire to become their friends, to inwardly even want to trust them, even through Alpha's coldness. I do not believe Lamia's intention was to simply be friends with them because it benefited her, though that is certainly part of the reason. Making friends is a part of the life that Lamia, when she was a little girl, sought after all this time, from the world of grass, trees, and blue skies that she's read about. This can also be shown through her playfulness and the way she carries out orders given regardless of whether she was lazy, not in the mood, or upset at the time. Her playfulness towards Alpha especially shows that despite the bad situation they were in, nor how the responses she would receive were, she still wanted to proceed with a friendship towards them. Personally, from what I remember, desperately so, but of course I hadn't done the story in so long, and I didn't read every single line in every single chapter. I just wasn't gonna do that. Like, come on, bro. Like, you'd have to literally be psychotic to do all that. But going back to the point, Lamia wanted that emotional stimulation she was deprived of for so very long throughout her early life. And I think that's the bullseye that we need to hit, why she's seemingly so anxious in the present. This is precisely why I believe this makes her the dependent branch of the trio. It's a newfound companionship that she thought that she never would have had. It's a sort of feeling of having older siblings. This is also tying into the idea of Alpha protecting a little sister-like figure in her life. She has two people to protect, Luna and Lamia. Lamia has two people she can depend on, friendship-wise. And Luna is independent enough to where she doesn't have to worry about her sister going out of her way and endangering herself in order to try and protect her. This is precisely why I also believe that this trio is going to end up staying together through such an intense bond, as we've already seen through the various live streams that you've probably seen go up on this channel of me reacting to certain things. Their friendship is quite obvious, of course. Lamia's inclusion with Luna and Alpha coaxed more of Alpha's protective nature out in my personal opinion, as I've mentioned before. After all, unlike Roland and Gabriel, who she has attempted to kill and has killed, she never once tried to take Lamia's life legitimately. Lamia must have known this, she must have actually felt this deep down even. Alpha might have known inwardly Lamia had just been a broken individual that was going through the same sorts of midlife crises that herself and Luna was going through once before. Lamia was someone who was dependent on them to help remold her to be stronger in this tougher world. I believe that is what hits the specific bullseye for the argument of Alpha's protective nature for the two of them. During Luna and Lucia's transition into the cruel world when they were young, Alpha knew she needed to remold her nearly broken sister to help better survive in this world, to protect her. Luna and Alpha needed to remold this nearly broken individual to better survive in this new cruel world, to protect her. From what I recall, Luna bears no hatred towards Lamia either. Lamia, whether she is coiled around Alpha or Luna, speaking her sweet nothings to them, or running away when she has annoyed them so much, the three of them are still together out of all of the Ascendants to this day, just like I've mentioned before. Each of these characters bring out better portions of themselves, and I look forward to seeing more interactions of them in the long run. Lamia's banner is going to be another banger of a stream because I am 100% going to get her, and I'm also going to be getting the new Luna as well when she comes out, whether it be towards the end of this year or next year. They all have to be on one team too, and I do not care how not meta it could be. But regardless, I wanted to say thank you guys for watching. I already know that only a handful of you will make it to the end of this, so I want you to type in the comments, "Shoe gang on the other side of the line," or just tell me you made it to the end. But thank you for watching, and I know this was a long one. You stuck it out for the long run, and I respect you for that. And as always, have a wonderful day, and peace.